To take a plane to another plane, to another plane, to another plane, bumping Baka not nice while I'm trapping in the rain.
We are recording. I'm very excited to have here today, live from the hyperbolic vibe chamber, as I was just informed it's called, Rayray Sugarbutt.
Hey, it's me.
How you doing?
Oh, pretty good. Like, as good as you can, like, really expect for, like, the current circumstances in the world.
Right, lot going on. We're
A lot going on.
definitely
Everything is
lucky.
on fire.
Yeah, yeah. No, all things considered, we're pretty fortunate to be able to be sitting in these cozy rooms, having conversations, staying connected, staying informed. A lot of people aren't so fortunate right now, so definitely got to stand up for those people,
Very
and
true.
yeah,
Very
yeah.
true.
So let's launch right into it. I mean, it's hard to avoid right now. I think might as well be a good place to start. I know that you've always been, politically interested, politically involved. You were big on Bernie Sanders, as was I. I would have loved to have seen him in a leadership position at a time like this.
Yep,
Certainly, no question whose side he would have been on.
absolutely.
Maybe launch into a bit of your thoughts and feelings at this time.
I mean, like, where do you want me to start? You want me to start with, like,
Yeah, it's very
the
vague.
primary election, or like how Joe Biden is bungling everything happening right now,
Yeah,
or
let me just ask you what happened to Bernie in your opinion? What happened with that? Because to me, he's been a shoo-in since 2016, and twice now he's been kneecapped in the primary.
well, I, I, what we sort of, or at least what I've heard, circulating is something that's pretty much been accepted at this point as like the true series of events was that basically it started out with Bernie kind of like he was sort of winning this year's primary, like
Right.
Trump won the last one, where there was like too many people and they're all too arrogant to like step down. So all the votes were split, and Bernie just kept winning like the majority share of the votes.
Yes.
And then like a bunch of them quit because they got no traction, but there were still like what, 3 or 4 or 5 that were still hanging in there. And then, you know, Nevada comes around and he finally gets like his first really big win, because he had a huge operation with like the American Latino community. He
Mm-hmm.
had all sorts of like he just did incredible outreach. He was the only one really talking to them. And so in Nevada, because there's a huge Latino community, he crushed it. And then that was the first time Joe Biden even came in anything other than like fourth or fifth.
That's the thing that I don't understand, and I think a lot of people don't understand, is that for like a couple of weeks there, Joe Biden was dead in the water. You weren't even talking about him as if it was potentially a thing, and then all of a sudden, on the turn of a dime, everybody drops out, endorses Biden.
Well, that's the thing,
Biden's
is
the front
that
runner.
what we now basically know happened was like shortly. I think it must have been after South Carolina, because all the useless other people were still in there before South Carolina. Because I don't know if you watched the last debate they had before it was down to just Biden and Bernie. But in South Carolina, Bloomberg was still in it, and he had like clearly planted people in the audience that were paid to
Oh,
cheer for him.
it was a joke. Yeah, it was a total joke.
It was ridiculous. Like South Carolina is like one of the worst states in America for teacher pay, and Bernie went up there and was like, "We need to pay teachers more," and the whole crowd booed. Like, these aren't
What
people
is
from
that?
here.
Like, as if.
Yeah, these aren't normal South Carolinians or
Yeah,
whatever.
maybe the billionaire paid some people.
Oh yeah, probably. That's what I think.
Yeah, it makes
But
sense.
yeah, so that they were all still in it before South Carolina, and then after South Carolina, Biden just mopped the floor there because he got the endorsement of Jim Clyburn, I guess, and apparently a lot of people there literally waited until the day of, or like the day before, to decide who to vote for. So they were still like considering Biden and Bernie, but Clyburn is such like a respected community figure there, at least with like black voters, that once Clyburn endorsed Biden, they all just rushed to Biden. And after South Carolina, for some reason, like they were really committed to the narrative of, oh look, Joe Biden's back, he won South Carolina. Which, this is just like a tangent, but I gotta say, I think that shit is stupid, because it's a southern state. It's always going to vote Republican until like
Right.
who knows how long in the future. So it's like it's not really a big like win that you crushed it in these like deep South states. It's like, okay, you won with the voters that are registered Democrat, but you're never going to win in the
They're not going to win
what
that
good is
state
it?
against Trump. Exactly.
Exactly. So it was dumb that they were like, oh, this is what proves it. But after that, after South Carolina, what we've heard now is that apparently Barack Obama made phone calls to everyone who was still in the race that wasn't Biden, and was like, hey, drop out Pete Buttigieg, drop out Amy Klobuchar. And like, now we know what Amy was offered, because Biden was considering her for vice president, until
Right.
this shit popped off, and we learned that she literally like decided not to press charges on the on Derek Chauvin, the guy who the cop who killed George Floyd.
Really?
Yes, he had killed someone before, a Native American guy, I think, and
And
Amy
she was
Klobuchar,
on that case.
he was the DA of Minnesota at the time, and she just let him walk. So
Oh man,
yeah,
don't you
so now
love the perfect storm, man? Everything
oh,
comes back for these fucking people, man.
literally what I've been saying is like Amy Klobuchar, if she had been Joe Biden's president, it would have been the perfect like fuck you, you get nothing
Yes.
presidential ticket. Because they were, when Amy was on stage, all she would talk about is, no, we can't afford that, we can't afford that, we can't do any of this shit, can't do any of that shit. And that's basically Biden as well. He's like, we don't need to do anything about that. Everything, just roll it back 4 years and it's fine. So the two of them together would have been just like the most blatant go fuck yourself ticket ever. Like, you get nothing.
They basically said the same things about Bernie that Trump would have been saying about Bernie had Bernie been the candidate to face Trump. You know, it's just like, oh, we can't, how are we ever going to do that? We can't afford it. You're crazy. You're a communist, all this stuff, right?
Which is like
So
super dumb, because they will call any Democrat a socialist or a communist, whatever.
Of
He's
course.
already calling Biden a socialist, which is,
and why would you divide your own party like that when
Well,
where you're all about unity and all this shit? You know what I mean? Like,
well, because that was always a fucking sham, is the thing, is because what they
that's right.
well, obviously, because for one, it's funny that they call them socialists and shit, because the Democratic Party of the U.S. is a conservative party, and if they were in Canada, all the shit that they propose would be the conservative party here. So
1,000%. And my dad's been telling me that since I was a kid. Like, what they call left and right down there, up here, it's like we're totally to the left of their entire spectrum.
Joe Biden would literally be like considered pretty far right here. He'd probably be further right than Andrew Scheer.
honestly, exactly. Joe Biden would be like, nobody would even, it would be worse than Scheer if somebody like Joe Biden ran here.
Exactly. Like, he would probably do worse than Scheer, because he's always been ultra conservative. He literally like, I'm a big like dance music fan, right? So like I learned that back in, I think it was like either the 90s or the late 80s, sometime around there, like the rise of dance music and raves in America. Joe Biden was literally the dude pushing laws to be like, I want to bulldoze raves. I want to bulldoze the warehouses they have raves in. In fact, he tried to pass, I don't know if it passed, but he tried to pass a law that was like, hey, if you try to resuscitate someone or give care to someone who is ODing on like club drugs like Molly or LSD or whatever, and you try to give them care so they don't die, that's legal. You're going to jail.
Wow.
Like, literally, he's just always been.
That's abysmal.
He's always been an asshole.
That's super fucking right. And that's why Obama made him the vice president, because he wanted that right wing appeal. You know what I mean?
That was
like,
the thing. Everyone was like, oh, see, that was Obama's big fucking grift, was that he originally ran as like an actual like left-wing progressive, like, I'm gonna tax the rich, I'm gonna make banks pay and all this shit. And so he got Biden on, so people thought he wouldn't be as radical. But then it turns out that he wasn't radical himself, because before he was even in office, he had everyone he was appointing to cabinet vetted by Citigroup Bank during like the greatest financial crisis of that decade, where everyone is losing their homes and shit and going broke because of like the bullshit market bubble. he literally had everyone that worked for him approved by fucking a bank. And then we all tried to pretend that he was progressive when he only ever really served like the interests of money.
Well, and now he's making phone calls to everybody to
Well,
make sure
see,
that
that's the
Biden
other
gets
thing.
Biden gets, like, if you're a progressive, you want Bernie Sanders. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I mean, obviously Biden was his buddy and all that, but aside from that, like, if you're if you're a progressive, that's what you want. You want Bernie Sanders, not Joe Biden.
Exactly. And I mean, this was actually kind of like my evolution, because when Trump won the election, I was in Hawaii at the time, I think, and I remember watching like a video of like Obama giving an address on like the White House lawn about the transition of power, right? And Joe Biden is behind him, just like throwing shade in the way that now a lot of liberal people really love. They're like, oh, Nancy Pelosi did the sarcastic clap, and
Oh
like
man, I
Biden was
hate that.
behind, yeah, Biden was behind Obama, and when he was trying to be like, we need to do a peaceful transition of power or whatever, Biden was literally like making the sign of the cross, and I was like, that's good.
That was kind of funny.
It was funny, but like at the time, I was really ignorant, so I thought like, oh, this is the perfect guy to take on Donald Trump, because he's
Right,
sassy, he doesn't give a fuck, whatever. And
right.
then as time goes on, not only did I realize this guy sucks, but
Ugh.
like people who know Joe Biden have been saying he's not the same as he used to be. And if you watch an interview with him at the time of the last election where he talks about Bernie, he's very coherent. He makes great points.
Yeah.
Like he's a different person. And if you compare it to now, his brain is mashed potatoes.
He's not the same guy.
He's not.
I know, and it's like I get uncomfortable watching him talk. Like I get physically uncomfortable, and I've been saying to myself, like, I couldn't have imagined watching somebody talk that makes me more physically uncomfortable than watching Trump talk. And Biden might actually be that. I might actually be more uncomfortable with the idea of that guy being the president than. Well, now it's hard to say. Now Trump really the last few days.
Yeah. No, it's like, oh yeah, we're just
like,
gonna
you know what? I'd
fashion.
rather take the senile guy at this point.
Yeah.
But it's like, why is that the choice? It's worse than the turd sandwich and the giant douche at this point, right?
Yeah,
like, it's even
I was
worse
literally
than that.
saying, I was like, I didn't think they could make this one more depressing than the last one, but they really hit it out of the park.
Honestly, it's the same play as the last one almost, except even more insulting to the people.
Yes.
Even more insulting. And now this has already been the craziest year of recent
Every month
history.
there's some new bullshit, but like now it's like, I mean, I gotta say, like, I guess if we're just gonna be fucking openly doing fascism now, I guess we'll take the mummy. But like, fuck, man, Joe Biden is the best. I don't even know if he can still beat him, because, okay, let's say like these protests probably won't last until November, unless
A
it literally
lot's
like
gonna
descends into
happen.
a civil war, and if that happens, then it's like it doesn't matter if there's an election, there won't
That's
be an
right.
election.
That's right. If there
But
is still an election, then a lot is still going to happen between now and then. That will change the whole thing, right?
yeah, like the attention span of people who just pay attention to the media constantly are like, will they even, like, there are people that are going to try and like litigate all of this shit, but part of me wonders, like, are you really gonna remember it in big enough numbers come time to vote that you actually get him out of office? Because there's a lot of people that are just, I mean, the fact of the matter is, like, most voters aren't engaged. They don't know what the fuck is going on, so they don't really think Trump is that bad, because they don't know any of the bad shit he does, because they don't know any of the bad shit Obama did either, really. So, like, if Trump can just do something that makes them feel good by election time, he might literally just squeak out, because he only won by, like, what, a couple thousand votes last time, so that's all he
less than
really
a million.
needs. So
And the thing, and what could be it is, I like him versus Biden in a debate. Like, I can't I can't imagine it being anything other than Trump absolutely roasting him the entire time, and Biden like fumbling and like not knowing how to talk and saying things wrong. And Trump, because
exactly.
say what you want about Trump, for his age, he's pretty fucking quick. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, that's the thing. This really annoyed me, because for years now we had all of like the liberal people saying like, "Oh, listen to Trump speak. he sounds like he has dementia. He's like, his brain is shit. He can't
No.
finish. He can't speak in a coherent
compare
sentence.
now.
And then
Compare him to
Joe
Biden.
Oh my God.
Now Trump sounds pretty like he doesn't sound smart by any stretch, but he sounds coherent. He sounds like he knows what he's doing
That's the
what
thing,
he
too.
thinks he's doing. You
That's
know?
the thing too, is that with Trump, I used to think that, oh yeah, his brain is mush, he's got dementia. And comparing like videos from 2015 to now, he does seem like he's kind of lost a little bit of a step. But
For sure, a little bit.
One, not to the degree of Joe Biden, and two, I kind of learned that most of the stuff that people would quote that would be like, look, he's speaking nonsense and gibberish, was actually just kind of him, like, they took like a really particularly bad segment of a rant he was going on, and like, he doesn't say anything, it's just word salad, but he is basically just being like an entertainer rather than trying to speak on anything.
That's what he is, man.
Well, the thing you got to remember with him is he doesn't fucking know anything. He's really stupid, but because of that, most of the time he sounds like he has dementia because he's trying to bullshit his way through shit he doesn't know about.
Yes.
So it's not that he's just like rambling about, I used to go down to the soda pop shop and rub my legs. He's not doing that. He's literally just like, I don't know what the fuck a tax code is.
No, he doesn't know about any of these subjects.
Yeah, and he tries to act like he does, and he bullshits his way through, and it makes no sense because he doesn't know what he's talking about. But
and all he talks about is how great he is, and none of it's even true. And then it's just like, as long as people are hearing it.
They even determined that. Like, I think there was some kind of memo that was circulated, like, from the White House, like, internally, that leaked out. That was like, he actually can learn and retain information, but only when it involves destroying someone he hates.
Wow.
Like, if he can get something out of it that like embarrasses or humiliates someone he doesn't like, then he actually remembers it super well. And you can see that in interviews with him, because he'll just bullshit and ramble and shit and say nothing. But then he'll talk about like how Joe Biden's clearly got actual dementia, and he's super on point. He's quick with the jokes. He knows what's happening. Like,
he is funny.
He just doesn't care. And when he does care, he actually can make coherent points.
Yeah, like
whereas Biden can't say shit about shit he knows about.
It's or he he did know about at one point anyway. Fucking I actually, and I'm first of all, thank you for coming out and saying that a lot of the Trump is an incoherent nut quotes are taken out of context, because it is true. And I for a long time was the same way, and was like, yeah, like you read these quotes or like you see little mini clips and you're like, oh yeah, this guy's fucked. But if you actually see, one time, I forget which one it was one of the more recent ones, like while the Democratic primaries were still going on, Trump was doing this little tour. It was before COVID really popped off, but it was earlier this year, I think. I forget what state he was in. But I happened to be on YouTube with some free time, and I saw that it was live, and I'm like, all right, let me actually watch Trump at a Trump rally talk to the Trump people. And honestly, I laughed out loud quite a few times at his intentional attempts to make people laugh. Like, it was like watching an HBO comedy special or a Netflix special. Like, he was just roasting Biden and Bernie the entire time.
That's the problem, is that he's not trying to say anything concrete when he goes to those rallies. He's just riffing. He's not just doing like stand-up.
He's not saying anything that the president should talk about.
The problem is, like, I fucking hate Trump. I would probably be quite happy if he was like actually dead, because he's very bad for a lot of shit.
You and many others, yes.
Yeah, but like I hate this man, but he's funny. He's fucking funny.
He's really funny. The shit he says. He's really funny. He's just really funny.
It's like they say on fucking Chapo.
He knows how to work a crowd.
Yeah, it's like they say on fucking Chapo Trap House. They're like, he's just a great big sassy bitch. He's a fancy boy, and he's funny because he's just constantly being like a bitch to people.
He is. He's like a diva. He's a big diva.
He's a huge diva. He doesn't care about being actually like the stereotypical image of like manly. He's just like, I'm gonna do gossip about people because I hate them, and it's usually funny because people like that shit. It's funny.
And the nicknames just stick. Like Sleepy Joe is just so perfect.
I mean, I feel like that one's actually more clever than people give him credit for, because I used to be like, Sleepy Joe, that's not really amazing or anything. And then I realized it's like, wait, did he try to make like a riff on Sloppy Joe? Because that would make more sense. But if he's sleepy, it sounds like sloppy. Like, I don't know if it was
Yeah,
intentional or not, but
yeah, in my mind, like, well, yeah, I like little word plays and stuff, so like I did think of that, but yeah, Trump may not have even thought of that. But it's like, yeah, it sounds like sloppy Joe, and it just like is a perfect word for somebody who's really old. But the funny thing is
because
they're
Joe is actually sleepy. His team was literally
yeah,
telling people he's sundowns. It's like after like 8 p.m. he's not as sharp, so he's
that's
literally
so
sleepy.
funny. And what's great is they're like not that far apart in age either. So like when
Yeah.
Trump is riffing about Biden being old, it's so fucking funny because it's like, you know, it's like he's in his 70s too. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, it's so good. But
Well, I mean, that's
not
how you know it was also even like in bad faith when people were talking about, oh, Bernie Sanders, he's really old, makes me concerned. He had one minor heart attack that they fixed with like a quick stent, which everyone there's like something like 50,000 people a year in America get stents. It's a very minor
oh,
procedure, and he was out of the hospital within
exactly.
like 2 days. Meanwhile, Joe Biden is the same age as Bernie Sanders and has had like 2 aneurysms. He had the top of his head sawed off so they could work on his fucking brain.
Seriously?
Yes, he's told that story
Oh,
himself. He had an aneurysm, and like he like had to have his skull opened up so they could operate on his brain. And he
why?
literally told a joke where he was like, my surgeon told me that you're like one of the only politicians I can confirm has a brain.
Wow. Why are these our choices?
Well, I can tell you why these are
Well,
the
they're not our
choices.
choices, but you know.
Well, no. But I mean, like, I can tell you why they're the choices. It's because obviously, me and my friends say all the time, America has. I think it was actually a quote from like an African leader or something. He was like one of those like typical African leaders where it was like a one-party state or whatever, and it's very corrupt or whatever. I don't know if he was actually like good or not, because like sometimes even though it's like a dictatorship, you get like a decent dictator. But regardless, this like leader of a country that was considered to be like a one-party state was like, America is also a one-party state, but in true American extravagance, they have two, which is
always
basically true.
America's always got a little extra. Yeah,
It's
true
basically true.
extravagance. Yeah.
Both parties are just capitalist parties, which is why it was.
Yes.
I got super pissed
And
off when Marco.
warmongers for that
Yeah,
matter.
yes, exactly, because Joe Biden was literally like one of the cheerleaders of the Iraq War. Because literally, when they were all voting for it, he gave like a 2-hour speech when he cast his vote. It's like, yeah, okay. Regardless, though,
Like, how
um,
is that a left-wing party? How is that a
it's not
liberal
at
party?
all.
Yeah,
It's
it's
not.
like,
It's literally it's kept like that on purpose. Is like, okay, this is as far left as we'll allow shit to go, so you don't get
yeah,
too imaginative.
yeah.
Which, like, if you ever watched Majority Report with Sam Cedar, which I recommend, is like a daily news show that's fairly like left wing and has a variety of left wing guests on for like the whole actual leftist spectrum. From like Sam's a little like he's probably like a social democrat, maybe a little socialisty, but I don't think he considers himself a socialist. But then he has his co-host on like Michael Brooks, who's an actual socialist, and you have Jamie Peck on, who's like an anarchist and stuff. But it's a good show for getting like leftist takes on news. But where was I going with this? What were we just talking about? Sorry, I got a little sidetracked.
Damn.
Uh,
Oh yeah, their
right. They
spectrum.
couldn't they don't want the voters to actually have like a
Yeah,
broader perspective.
right.
And Sam Sater on Majority Report was literally like, okay, so the virus is going on right now. They're not going to get anything passed because they don't control the Senate, and then when they don't control the Senate, the GOP just blocks everything because they're corrupt as shit and they don't give a shit about optics because no one cares about optics anymore.
Yeah,
But
no.
that means that if you're making like a bill in the House, it's just a messaging bill, right? Like it's just supposed to be, if we were in power, this is what you would get. But you have no like, you don't have to worry about having to actually deliver on it, right? Because it's never
No,
getting
they're
passed.
never held
And
accountable. Yeah.
that was the problem, though, was that even when the Democrats weren't being held accountable, they didn't fucking pass. They didn't put anything in the bill that was like anything that would excite anyone. They purposely
No.
tried to keep it as useless as possible, where it was like we're not gonna give any sort of like we're not going to have any sort of mechanisms for this to last. It literally like, okay, everyone gets this amount of stimulus until we have so and so amount of people back employed, and then it stops. Until that many people are employed again, it's still in, and it doesn't go away until then. They didn't put anything like that in that bill, which didn't pass because it was just supposed to be something to tell voters, if you vote for us next time, you'll get this. And they didn't have any obligation to deliver on it right now, but because they don't want to ever have to deliver those sorts of things, because they're not a left-wing party, they're a conservative party, they didn't put it in. So it's like, this is all they really do is try and limit the scope of expectations, you know?
Yeah, and then if anybody is actually leftist, they get called radical, they get called freaking Antifa, whatever it is, right? And it's like, no, that's just actual progressive. But because the whole spectrum has been shifted in one direction, you know, I mean, they would look at Canada and think that we're fucking radical leftists here because we're, you know, kind of social democrats or whatever, you know.
Like the funny thing is, my dad, who is actually in the hospital right now, recovering from surgery. So I'll talk a little bit about that later. But he is from like Belgium, and he's like super duper conservative by most standards. He has a lot of the talking points that like even American conservatives have.
Right.
But at the same time, being from Europe, he has a lot of views that if you told that to like an American politician, they just call you like a fucking communist. Like he believes that everyone deserves housing. Like he believes housing is a human right because it's actually just efficient to have people be in homes, because it actually costs you more to have people be homeless because like they like have to turn to crime to make money sometimes, or they need to go to the hospital more because they're sick all the time because they're on the street, and they, more importantly, because they're homeless, they can't get a fucking job because they don't have an address, so they can't put down an address when they're trying to get hired. And when you don't have a job, you're not contributing any money to the economy. So if you had a house, if the government collected taxes or whatever and paid to give everyone a home, we would actually have a stronger economy because you would have no homeless people, and they would mostly be employed putting money back into the system and like raising GDP or whatever the fuck ever. But we don't do that because, I don't know, austerity totally works, you guys. It'll kick in any time now.
We still need to appease all these conservative voters for some reason, right? And it's just like that, you know, and I you know, I couldn't agree more on everything you're saying. And it's, you know, and the answer, I mean, sorry, the rebuttal is always, well, who's going to pay for that? And it's like, they already tax the fuck out of us. You know what I'm saying? It's like they can't get it to go, like, let's just have it go there instead of the 100 other stupid things it probably goes toward now, because we keep trying to appease this fucking, you know, these people that want, you know, military and you know, police funding and all this shit. And it's like, we don't need that, man. We, you know, it's not necessary. We need people to be educated and healthy and have shelters over their heads, you know.
Well, I mean, that's the one thing that I like that's actually coming out of this is like there's actually a lot of places in America that are now looking at like cutting the police budget somewhat, because they're like, okay, why are we giving you gigantic raises that are in some cases half the budget of the city? Like Los Angeles, like 54% of the budget was for the LAPD.
Yeah.
Why? But like they've decided like, okay, people, one, don't want us to do that, and two, you seem to be not using it super well because you don't even
you don't fucking train people properly, you know. Well, first of all, you could start there.
There's this dude named Steve Grossman that goes around he says he's trained cops in every state as well as other countries, but basically what he does is he goes in and teaches them like warrior training, and it's like a 2-day like boot camp type thing, and he basically tries to like instill in them just like a mentality of fear, of like it's your duty to kill people because you're the only thing standing between like civil society and total anarchy. Like he literally says shit like, oh, if they're gonna start like attacking orphanages and killing like toddlers and shit if not for you, like literally just making every cop as paranoid and terrified as possible, so that they're always like fearing for their life out there when they're really not in danger most of the time.
No, of course
I
not.
I made a series of tweets about this today actually, but I was like, if if people started burning down fire departments, would you approve of like the fucking fire department going around starting fires? Like people are like, oh, if they didn't want people to do this shit, then they should have been peaceful, and then the cops wouldn't have to attack them. And it's like, one, ignoring all the fucking baggage that comes with that, because I think that's wrong and like loaded speech to begin with. But
Yep.
if even if there were like widespread fatal attacks on police, which there aren't, but if there was, there's no fucking law that says, oh yeah, if enough cops die, they have free reign to start shooting indiscriminately, shoving elderly people to the ground, hitting pregnant women in the stomach. All things which have happened now, by the way, on video that we have like proof of.
Oh, and worse.
And
all
worse,
sort,
yeah,
all
exactly.
sorts of awful things.
Exactly.
It's
like, it's not-
unbelievable.
You can't even justify it as a response, because it's like, you said you like this shit because you like law and order, except they're breaking the law, because there's no fucking law that says they can do these things in response to even like just an epidemic of cop deaths, because it's not a fucking sports team, it's a public service. Your job is not to get revenge, your job is to enforce the law, and you're not enforcing the law when you shoot a peaceful protester who just happens to be standing somewhere doing nothing in the head with a rubber bullet and give him like actual brain damage.
Because you're personally insulted by his actions. It has nothing to do with the law. Nothing to do with the law. It has to do with your pride and your fucking ego and your garbage and your bullshit that should be trained out of you, not trained further into you and directed in that fucking direction toward the people you're supposed to be protecting and being there for. All that needs to happen. You know, like talk about equality. You know, it's obviously minorities, people of color getting their rights to the same level, and then cops not being above the law as well, because they are above the law. Like as much as black people are treated below the law, cops are treated above the law. You know,
it's actually more extreme than you might think, because there's currently, I don't know if it's passed or if it failed, but there was a motion in the Supreme Court on Monday where they were trying to make it so basically that you had that like cops and like government officials had immunity from being prosecuted for stuff unless there was precedent. Like civil immunity. So basically, if you break the law as a cop and then you get taken to court, right? What they were debating on in the Supreme Court was, let's make it so you can only actually successfully convict a cop of that thing if it's happened in the past and we already ruled that it was legal.
So in other words, the entire 100 years of bullshit, well, more than that, of bullshit oppressive system that's been proven to be fucking systematically corrupt, we're going to uphold by that whole history of precedents, and nothing else will ever stand that comes up new other than stuff.
Yeah.
And that's not a corrupt system. That's the most backwards fucking shit ever, man. That's the most ridiculous shit I ever heard. I can't believe that's even a thing.
Well, I mean, at this point, it's just literally they're super blatant about it because they feel like they have like absolute power. Because how else do you?
And they feel like they are being attacked. They feel like they got the target on their back, and they're being. It's like, are you kidding me?
How do you even describe it as anything other than feeling like you have absolute power when they literally just shoot at reporters when they're live on TV? Like they arrest CNN while they're broadcasting, literally asking them why you arresting us with CNN, and they just arrest them while they're broadcasting, and the station is showing it to millions of people, or they like shoot at NBC, like literally just you see the cop aiming at the camera and firing into the camera. It's like everyone can see. What the fuck are you doing? And it's like it's because they don't care. They feel like they're above any sort of consequences. They don't give a shit.
Yeah, absolutely. They don't care. And again, they're empowered by this because now it's us versus them to them, Now they're going in there and they're like, all right, boys, we're under attack here, and it's like that's not the right mentality. You're supposed to be, civilians more or less just like us. We're all supposed to be equal. Imagine if the shoe was on the other foot and it was 4 black guys, and one of them was killing a cop. And that was on video for how quick would that?
when the protesters were like attacking I think it was like a police headquarters in Atlanta, the cops were like, "We're pinned down. We're outnumbered 4-1." Like, oh,
Yeah. Oh,
really?
4-1,
What's that
eh?
like?
I love that irony. Yeah. What's that? I wonder what that's like, you know? Why don't we ask George Floyd? Oh, wait, we can't, you know?
Yep.
Unbelievable. And, you know, all it takes is them coming down to everybody else's level and saying, hey, guys, you know, we know that that was murder. We know that that was wrong. We're going to hold these guys accountable and show that we're not standing for that shit either, because it makes us all look bad. None of them say it. Well, I'm sure some do, you know, I'm sure some do, but the majority is like going to war with the people. They're fucking, they all are so ready for this. They all fucking got hard-ons for this shit, man. It's what they became cops for
I
this
mean, the
fucking
thing is, like,
riots, for this shit.
people want to talk about like the good cops that don't condone this shit, and it's like, one, where the fuck are you right now? But two, they don't last. They're usually pressured out of the police force by the police union. Like
Yep.
the one I like to reference is Carriel Horn. I think she was an officer in New York City, a black female police officer, and she literally got like kicked out of the force because she intervened on one of her partners, like using excessive force, and she made him stop, but then they kicked her off the force. So it's like,
Wow.
this is what happens to cops who are good, is they're not allowed to keep being cops.
Yeah, that's the whole thing that's ingrained. It's the culture of police, and it's like, you know, how long can you be a person of good conscience and stay with that badge on, with that uniform on, after some of the stuff that they see? They probably, you know, I'm sure they see a lot of fucked up shit civilians are doing too. You know, like, you know, let's not pretend that regular people don't do really fucked up shit. I'm sure they walk into people's houses and they see, you know, husbands beating wives bloody and beating up kids, and they see all sorts of horrendous shit that probably does make you jaded toward humanity to some extent.
Yeah.
That being said, if you're the type of person that can't handle those situations without it making you think everybody is the enemy, then you shouldn't be a police officer, or they should be worked with on a mental health level to make sure that those situations aren't making them jaded toward all of humanity, because you can't do that job and be jaded toward humanity, because then when there is a peaceful protest, you're going to be the first one, you know, throwing the tear gas when you think that you see somebody about to throw a rock or some shit. You know, it's unbelievable that the entire system we have for police is not completely different. It's just,
I mean, that's the thing that makes me super mad when people like try to defend the American police force. It's like, okay, you can, I get why you would want to support police, I guess, because there are, you know, like dangerous people in society that need some kind of like legitimate force to hold them accountable. But the fact of the matter is, there are countries that don't have this problem. Like there's like there's still problems with like racist policing in like the UK and Canada and Australia, but they don't fucking go around murdering innocent people at this ridiculous rate, especially now in increasingly broad daylight when we can tell it was for no good reason. Like the thing that pisses me off about this is that it was another police killing in Minneapolis, and like they're one of the worst police departments in America, because like something like 90% of them don't even live in Minneapolis. They live like outside the city, which is funny because everyone's like, oh, these rioters are like outside paid agitators. I'm like, well, no, here's your outside paid agitators. It's the cops that don't live in this city that then go around fucking people up
yeah, because they
for
don't care.
nothing.
Yeah.
But like the one of the shootings that really upset me was the death of Philando Castile, and that was
Yes.
also, you know, same place, same police department, innocent
Was it?
man. Yeah, it was
Wow.
literally like Minneapolis, I'm pretty
That
sure.
was the one for me. I mean, they all really hurt me, but same as you said, like
Yeah,
that one for me was like
that one,
really gut wrenching. Like that
it,
was.
it, it's like actually crushing. Like I still get fucked up thinking about it because
Me too. Me too.
he was literally like a licensed gun owner. So it's like you literally did everything right. You
He
have
did
like the permit.
everything
You have
right.
he tells the cop, I have a weapon. I'm a licensed gun owner. I want to reach for my license. Let me reach for my license. And then he does that, and he gets murdered in front of his like spouse and child.
Multiple shots.
Multiple shots. I don't even think that officer like ended up going to jail. And on top of that, you literally could not have killed a nicer person. He was like a lunch man for like a grade school, and he knew all of the kids like dietary needs. He knew what all of them liked. He was like good friends with all of them. He had like all their names memorized, and like when they murdered him, like the little kids wrote like these sweet like innocent letters that were just like being like, you were the best lunch man ever. And it's like,
Oh,
fuck, man, all you want to do is feed kids.
and
All
then
you want to do is feed kids.
and he did everything right in the situation too, you know. And it's like so many of these things, you know, the people who do want to argue against the movement or whatever will be like, well, why weren't you just more cooperative with the cops? Why did you give the cops attitude? Well, what about that case? What about that case where he could not have been more compliant? You know,
Well,
he
that's the
did
thing you're seeing right now too, is that it doesn't matter if you're compliant, because
well.
there is
And now
literally
George Floyd is the
not even
newest
George
example.
Floyd. Talk about protesters, like protesters who aren't even black. You get like white dudes being like, there was literally what footage of a guy who was like openly talking to the policeman like, I love you, I appreciate what you do, you are actually valuable, and then they just arrested him anyways. Like, it doesn't fucking matter
Ugh,
if you
I
follow the
didn't see that one.
rules.
Saw the
Doesn't
one
matter
with
if you
the
peacefully protest, they still shoot at you and gas you and beat you. There was a medic 10 in Asheville, North Carolina that had hundreds of dollars in medical supplies, water, actual like nurses there, like, and miles from the actual protests, and they just like came in there all fucking jackbooted and tore up the medic tent, knifed all the water bottles and dumped the water out on the street, creating, you know, lots of litter too, because that's cool. And then like just
ugh.
destroyed all this medical supplies, and it's like, where are the people that were pissed off about property damage now? It's like, oh, the cops are, someone tries to commute through a protest in their car, not even doing anything at the protest, they're trying to drive through it, and the cop smashes the shit out of your car. Where are the people that were mad about property damage now for that, right? No one
Ugh.
gives a fuck apparently if it's the cops doing all of the gang shit.
Oh, and no kidding, all the gang shit. It's despicable, some of the stuff
Oh,
that's come out. And
since I
there's
said all the gang shit, I should also mention that there's apparently now word that the cops are working with an actual gang, the Latin Kings, to fucking go around and harass and attack protesters. So I was like, oh yeah, this is totally cool. Where like the state approved like enforcement of law is just straight up working with an actual gang to go around and fucking attack people. It's like, at this point, what are American cops other than like a state sponsored gang? I don't see the difference.
yeah, no, they always kind of have a militarized one, you know. Um, they got a heavier arsenal than any gang in the world, you know. It's I'd much rather have the mafia running things, you know, than the police. Unfortunately, I'd
I mean, you
rather.
joke, but like, I'm not gonna say the mafia is like a better alternative because it's still the mafia. But like the back when there was actual like powerful labor unions in America, a lot of them were backed by the mob, and like that's kind of shitty. But like at the very least, they had some degree of solidarity with working people, so they actually got them like fair wages and working protections and shit. Whereas the police union is like the only union in existence in America that has any real power, and they have no solidarity with any other labor union. They don't protect any other union. In fact, they're usually the guys crushing people attempting to like organize their labor and actually have power as workers in America. That's always the cops and the police union trying to crush that shit. So it's like, oh, that's kind of ironic. Like the one useful union in America is the one that tries to prevent the working class from having any degree of power at all.
Or freedom or comfort in some cases. Oh man, it's too much. It's depressing. Let's talk about something happier. You're number
Okay.
one. You're number one, Rayray
I
Sugarbutt.
I am indeed number one. I was ranked the number one trans model on many vids. I had like the number one MV score, which is like the like sum total of like, I think it's like people leaving reviews, people like subscribing and following you, people buying your stuff, how many views you get, how many likes you get, all that stuff added together cumulatively. I was number one for that at the same time that I won number one model. And on top of all that shit, the video that I released had it was like the number one best-selling video on the whole website. Like I beat all the like cisgender girls that actually have vaginas. I sold more a video than them.
Fuck
So
them.
I mean, no, it's like solidarity with my fellow sex workers.
I'm joking, of course. I literally fuck them. So, you know, it is. But no, you look great. You look adorable. I love it. I love
Hey,
everything you got going on. I didn't see the video in question, but I saw little clips from it. I saw photos from it. And I was like, holy shit. Like, I couldn't
it
think of
was
a more perfect fit. Like, I had no idea you did that stuff, right? So when I saw that, I was like, yes. That like makes perfect sense in my mind.
I put a lot of effort into the stuff I make, as you can see from like my fancy studio that I live in with like my neato color controlled lights. Let's see if I can. Yeah, like see I can like change the colors on all sorts of shit.
Oh shit.
There's like other lights in here that it can also change colors and stuff, but yeah. But
so you've built this studio, you create your own content.
Yep, I literally do everything. I'm a one woman show. I source all my outfits and my props and my decorations. I put together like the whole sets and like the concepts for it. Usually what I'll do is I don't really plan any of these from like nothing. Usually what I'll do is I'll go and I'll just shop for clothes, and then I'll find one particular item that inspires me, and then I'll just sort of build it out from there. Like the thing with the snake oil video, how that one started was literally I ordered the snakeskin bodysuit sometime in I think January, and then that got here in the mail, and I tried it on in front of the mirror that I have over to this side of me, and I took some selfies in it, and then I like played around with the lighting and saw what like color schemes worked best with it in my room, and then I took the selfies and I put them in Photoshop, and I like overlaid other bits of clothing that I found around the internet until I was like, okay, I like the overall look of this outfit. Like I mock it up first to create a concept, and then I slowly like buy all of the pieces of it until I have like the concept in real life, and then from there, even at that point, it's still a very like a very touch and go operation. Like there was no script when I was making it, right? Like basically all I do is once I have all of the pieces together, I just set up the studio, turn on the lights, put on the outfit, and then just sort of start taking pictures and see what happens. And with that one, how did it go? The first night I had like maybe I was just like shooting for 6 or 8 hours or something, but I didn't have enough footage. I wanted to do more stuff. And so the following weekend, I put the outfit on again, set everything up again. And then at the end of that, after I was done shooting all that stuff, I was just like laying on the sofa bed here, and I was like, oh, it'd be pretty. I should like get an overhead shot of like me laying on the bed in this outfit, so we have like a full photo of the outfit and the decorations and all that shit. So I do what I always do when I want overhead shots. I duct tape my phone to the ceiling. Which
Really?
is like, yeah,
I love it.
That's how I do overhead shots. It's like it's always super DIY and like guerrilla operation.
I had the word DIY in my head. I was like, I just love DIY creativity. It's what I'm all about, as you know. So I duct tape the phone to the ceiling. I'm like, yep, that's the type of thing we do.
That's not even the most ridiculous one. For the thing I did for Valentine's Day, I literally taped the phone to like the blades of my ceiling fan and then turned it on and off really quick so the blades spun slowly. So I got like a rotating pan of the whole room.
Wow.
Like I just sort of do what I can on the fly to sort of like make the ideas I have come real, come true, you know, as best I can.
But yeah, like, with your own resources and stuff.
Yeah, like I don't really have like cameras or anything like special. Like right now I'm lit by like a light ring in my TV, and the TV is just like open to Google, so the page is as white as possible to get a nice like white balance. But
that's smart.
Yeah, but like but anyway, like I had the phone taped to my ceiling and I'm doing that shit, and I realized, oh hey, I can make it look like I'm talking on the phone if I just take my phone case, which is not like I took the phone out of the case, and I just held the case up to my ear, and I that's when I got the idea, like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I like sort of made it like I was having a conversation on this as like the intro to this, to like make it seem more like a themed thing. And then I didn't even script the dialogue. I just said random shit into the like phone case with the phone set up at different angles. And then from there, because I had all like the, in fact I have it right here. I like found like a bottle of baby oil, and I wrote like snake oil on it.
That's
And I was,
great.
yeah, so I was like, hey, wait a second. I just did a bunch of stuff where I poured a bunch of baby oil on myself. Snake oil salesman. Maybe we got something here. And then I like, from there I was like, okay, let's record some voiceovers. And I did like a fake mafia voice, like Fat Tony from The Simpsons.
Nice.
Yeah, like that's me in the video doing that voice. And I like, it's not 100% organic. I had to pitch shift it down because my voice doesn't go that deep. But I still, like I put on my best mafia voice, and I told you what and stuff like that. But like, but
That's
yeah,
pretty good.
that's how that worked. And then from there, I that was at that point in the process of creating that one. It was literally like probably like the end of March, I think. So that was around when the quarantine started, and I wasn't able to go anywhere or like get anything, or even like get like my hair done. Like my roots are really grown out now. Like a lot of
Right.
the, so I was literally like, okay, what do we do with this? So I was like, okay, we have let's just try and wait this out basically, because it was like, oh, maybe by May or something, I'll be able to go to like the hairdresser and get my hair done and get everything like set up so I can do another like themed big adventurous thing. So in the meantime, I need to put stuff out. So let's just make the most of this, and every weekend I can like just film more footage for this. And so like the theme of it eventually became like, oh, okay, so I get phoned up by this mafia dude. He sells me some magical snake oil, and the result of it is you rub it on your body, and it makes you like dumb bimbo brain horny, and it like makes your like, yeah. I was like, okay, so what else does it do? Like it makes your junk get bigger, and it makes you basically like come infinitely. So to make that seem real, like every weekend I would put the outfit on, set up the all this bullshit, and then just film another like coming scene. And once I had like a month and a half of those done, I had so many that I could edit it together to make it look like it all happened in like one night. And the result was basically like a video where there's like, I think like 4 or 5 coming scenes just happening in this room while I'm still wearing the same outfit. So it looks like it's all in one session, and like people like that. It sells really, really well, because it was literally like the best, the most, it sold the most copies of anything on the website. So
That is amazing. And did you have issues with like maintaining continuity, having doing those scenes every weekend like that over that amount of time?
I mean, it mostly just pissed me off because putting on the outfit sucked, because I would have to shave my whole body, and then I would have to put on the fishnets first because they go underneath the bodysuit, and then I would have to put on like the bracelets, and I actually got my ears pierced in preparation for the set, but then they told me you can't take the piercings out for like 4 months, so I had to buy these clip-ons for these big like hoop earrings here,
Hmm.
and these fucking hurt, man. Like, they fucking hurt. Like after 2 hours of wearing them, they're just like pulling on your ears, and it's like really raw and sore. So just like by like week 4 of it, I'm like, I gotta put this shit on again.
Hey, but it was worth it.
It was worth it because it made quite a lot of money. But like
Yeah. So sorry, what's the website again?
many vids, you can find me on many vids as Rayray Sugarbutt. You can find me on Twitter as Rayray Sugarbutt. I have a subscribe star page, which is on both my many vids and my subscribe star linked in my Twitter bio. They're both Rayray Sugarbutt. I'm Rayray Sugarbutt everywhere. But
Cool.
like the ManyVid store is just where I sell like full length videos because they're quite large files, and like my subscription service, I basically, because I post like daily, I just put together all of the pictures and small clips that I have and put them on like mega.co.nz and upload them as like a big like archive you can just like access at will, so you can browse whatever pictures and videos you want and like download individual stuff. And because I post daily, you can go through like an archive of like 2,000 or probably closer to 3,000 or more things. And like that's how I saw that. But because it's like a storage website, if I was uploading all the full length videos to it, it would rapidly like outgrow the size limit for what they allow you to store on there. So I just sell the full length stuff on my ManyVid store, and that's pretty good because like it's more revenue than it would be if I just sold it in the Subscribe Star shit. And that's how I'm able to finance this crazy bullshit that I do,
That
because
is
it actually costs
incredible.
it costs a lot of money to make this shit, because you got to buy all the outfit pieces, and like if you want to do it soon, you got to pay for the fast shipping so it gets
Yeah.
there in time. And like the outfit pieces usually aren't cheap. Like you can try to find cheap stuff, but if you find that one thing that like really pulls it together, you kind of just gotta buy it. Like it doesn't matter the cost. Like it's
Yeah.
for the vision. So
Yeah. Hey, it's for the vision. And it's like, oh man, I was just gonna ask something and I lost it. Oh yeah, and I was gonna say, like, it's also as much as you're doing something that you enjoy, it's also is work, right? So it's like it does kind of have to
it's
pay the
it's
bills for it.
definitely work. Like I this is now a definitely at least a full-time second job, because I have to spend at least like, it's usually at least 4 hours every day after my day job that I will spend like editing together pictures, because like I like to have my pictures be like really as nice as I can possibly get them, right? So I have to comb through like anytime I do a shoot, I usually end up with like several hundred pictures and maybe a couple dozen video clips. So I have to go through all those pictures, find the absolute like best ones that I think are like most they're gonna excite people the most. And then because Twitter fucking sucks and crops shit stupid, I have to usually take like at least 3 vertical pictures and assemble them in like a just like a horizontal triptych composition type thing with like 3 pictures. And to do that, I gotta find 3 pictures that are good. And sometimes it'll be easy and I can just like take 3 pictures that are good and then adjust the lighting on them and the colors a little bit, sharpen them up, and then post them. But sometimes there'll be my face will be blurry, but my junk will be really in focus. And then in the next picture, my face will be in focus, but my junk will be blurry. So I have to take the 2 pictures and like edit them together. Like it's not like faking any of like the stuff in the picture, but you have to like splice the 2 pictures together so it actually you can see what the fuck it is, because otherwise it would just be like, oh, that's a nice dick, and then just like with just my face going like in the background.
so have you at this point, like, okay, so like I do music and stuff, and like I imagine, for any artist, it's like any project that you're working on, there's probably several points throughout it where you're like, oh man, this might fucking suck, like this, like you get self-conscious or whatever. So I imagine doing the type of work that you're doing, like I'll say that the opportunity for self-consciousness to be a thing is probably pretty high. Like, have you broken through the barrier of like, because I imagine like if I was looking at HD pictures of my junk, no matter, uh, how good or bad I might think it is, in an HD picture, anything, you know what I mean? You're seeing stuff that's not normally there. I would compare it to like people say they hate the sound of their own voice, right? But I'm to the point where I've been recording my voice so much through music and broadcasting stuff that I hear the sound of my voice recorded. It doesn't sound any different to me. So would you, a weird question, but would you compare the act of like seeing your own private parts in high definition? Is that something, I imagine for most people it would be similar to hearing the sound of your own voice, and something that you kind of have to break through a barrier of getting used to, of like, yeah, that's me? Because I think 90 to 100% or 90 to 99% of people are probably only used to looking down at themselves, you know what I mean?
I mean, for one, it's funny that you mentioned like hating the sound of your own voice, because half the reason I only sound like I do now is because when I was like a younger kid, I was like not coming to terms with the fact that I was trans, so I was trying to just be like as masculine as possible. So I would like artificially talk in like the deepest voice I physically could, and until I would like hear recordings of myself and like, oh, I don't like that at all. And
Right.
so over the course of high school, and then even after high school, actually, because I actually recently during like a drunken night of nostalgia, I was going through old videos on my computer, and I found a video from like 2015 or 20, yeah, probably 2015, where I was in Hawaii and just like in a car talking to a friend, and like I was like, oh my god, that's my voice from like 4 years after I was out of school, and that still doesn't sound like me anymore. Like
Wow.
it's just gradually gone higher and higher and higher until I'm like now at a point where I hear this voice when I speak, and I'm like, okay, this sounds like me. Like I don't feel cringe when I hear this. This feels right. But as far as like seeing your own junk goes, it's honestly funny because part of the reason that I post so much content is because I just kind of like generate it as like a byproduct of existing. Uh, like when I'm just, doing my thing by myself, I want to take pictures of it to like look at it myself because like I guess I'm just like kind of a big narcissist. So
Okay.
I like get off to like seeing myself doing stuff that I think is hot. So so
Huh.
I actually told this to like my one of the ladies giving me laser hair removal is that it's not like an exhibitionism thing. It's literally that I have such like a dumb fucking chimp brain that I take a picture of my junk and I go, yo, that's a big dick, and I want to show people because like, yo, this is cool.
Ha ha. That is fantastic. I never would have thought of it that way, but it makes so much sense. Do you think that's the case for a lot of people who get into adult entertainment?
I don't know if it's the case for a lot of people that do it. I think a lot of
You think you're
people
just a big weirdo?
probably like I think a lot of people that get into it or like they like showing off for other people. Whereas for me, it's like I don't actually care that people can see it. It's just like I
You
took a
just
good
like it.
picture. I took a good picture and I wanted to share it with people because I'm proud of it because it's like it doesn't even really register as me in the picture so much a lot of the time where it's just like, oh, this is a really cool picture, you guys. I found this big dick. Check it out.
Wow. So like I'm talking about breaking through a barrier and you've just always existed on the other side of that barrier,
Yeah, there
basically.
is no barrier.
There's no barrier to break through whatsoever. It's like here's what the fuck I do, you know. Yeah, might as well make something of it. And you've
I mean,
obviously you
that
got the
was how it ended
following.
up. That was how it ended up playing out. Was because I just literally wanted to share it with people, and I made so much of it that I've been doing it for like over 5 years now, and like more than that technically. But like I started out when I was literally like 18 on like one of those old timey like Chan image boards. I think it was Mail General, and I just would like post nudes and shit on that board, and that was never really like an official thing, but I got back into it sometime around like 2013 or 14, I think, and I started posting to Reddit, and people really liked what I had to share. So people kept asking like, oh, do you have like a website or something where I can just find all your stuff? So eventually I made a Tumblr, and I had so much stuff that I literally was able to just like post multiple pictures every single day on Tumblr for like a straight year or two, and that basically like by the time Tumblr shut down porn, I had like,
That sucked when Tumblr shut down porn.
well, it was also fucking stupid because they lost like 99% of their market share
Oh,
at
who
the
the
same
fuck
time,
goes to Tumblr anymore?
right?
I ain't
But
been there since.
before they did that, I had literally like 50,000 something followers because I just posted so much that even if I didn't post something amazing, I was still getting traffic. And so people, like, I would always get new people from a post, and that meant that I would always have new people and more people to see when I posted something that was actually exceptional. So as long as I
Right.
keep the posting train up, whenever I post something really good, it gets even bigger than it otherwise would because there's actually people around to see it.
Gotcha.
And I wasn't doing it like for profit on Tumblr. I was literally just like posting casual nudes that I would like take in like my bedroom and like just random clothes rather than themed outfits. But after Tumblr banned porn and I had nowhere to really post it, I migrated to Twitter, and there was no real way to like host all of the stuff I had made because I had made so much of it. So I had to pay to host it because there's over 2,000 pictures,
Right.
and that was basically the start of me doing it for money. But then once I started doing it for money, I was like, oh shit! I didn't think people actually would pay.
I can do this for money.
Yeah, like I didn't really think people would be that interested in paying for it because I was always, just sharing it for free because I didn't want to paywall shit. I wanted people to see it because that was the whole point of why I did it, was like I made something cool and I want to show it with you. So I didn't think people would pay, but they ended up paying, and then I was like, okay, if people are gonna pay, I may as well like get more into this and see how like creative I can make it. So I started buying like increasingly weird outfits. I started buying like weird props, or like I built this fancy lighting studio so I would have cool colors and shit. And eventually it just sort of snowballed into what we have now, where I make like pretty professional looking videos with like nice lighting and themed outfits and theme sets to match the outfits and stories and shit like that. And it's cool. I get to be creative with it. Literally, the reason I really got into it last year, other than like wanting to make some use of the money, was I didn't really get to go anywhere last year. Like I usually travel a little bit every year, and I didn't really get to. So I was like, well, if we're not going anywhere, let's play make believe and play pretend we're someone cool doing something cool.
Well, if I guess you faked it till you made it, because now you're somebody cool doing something pretty cool.
I like to think so.
Yeah.
I still have no concept of like my own like personal fame. I say this to everyone, but like I literally just, it always blows my mind when people who are actually like in the industry or are like just artists I follow that make like not safe for work art follow me back or tell me they followed me for years or they like the shit I make. It's like,
Wow.
you know me? I thought I was like some nobody just like posting shit, but apparently people know who I am.
That's super cool.
It's an interesting feeling, but
Well,
I
it's
mean,
cool because you know it's a kind of fame where it's through the internet and you can still walk around and do stuff in real life without
well,
getting bombarded, right?
I don't know if people recognize me in public because I've seen people staring at me all the time, but I don't know if it's because I just have a very distinctive hairstyle or if it's because they actually know who I am.
It's because you're sexy, obviously. Um,
But
yeah,
I had one dude outside like the Fresh Co, just like some dude I've never seen before. He was like, "Hi there," and I was like, "Hi." No idea who that guy was.
could be a fan. Could be a fan.
Maybe. You
Yeah.
never know.
Wait till you get bombarded for an autograph or something. I gotta pee real quick, which is the first time this has happened on the show. So I apologize if this is awkward, but I'm gonna be as quick as possible.
No worries.
Okay.
Alrighty.
My apologies. So I want to talk to you about fashion and the outfits and stuff because I know that's a big part of doing what you do. I've always, as long as I've known you, thought you were a great dresser.
Thanks.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about like your fashion influences, like what inspires you when you see that you're like, I got to make something with that, you know? And maybe talk a little bit about like, I want to hear a little bit about like your Tokyo experience and if there was any sort of fashion influence drawn from that at all. And if not, that's cool too.
Well, I don't really know that I was influenced by the fashion I saw in Tokyo so much, just because like we didn't really go to that many places that were like youth centers while I was there. Like I was mostly just going around doing touristy shit. So I mostly just saw like normal Japanese people or working class Japanese people doing their daily stuff. So I didn't really see any
Right.
crazy outfits. But I also kind of feel like you're not really going to see that much that surprises you when you go to Asia, just because like a lot of streetwear we have here in like Western culture is just sort of stuff people took from like South Korean fashion, Chinese streetwear fashion, and just like adapted over here with like like big shirts but like really like geared up pants, or like the weird cuts of stuff with like accent lines and shit like that. So I don't really think you're going to see a lot in Japan necessarily that you haven't seen before. At least not if you're into streetwear stuff and you follow that stuff. Like a lot of the stuff that you can buy on like I mean, it's a Chinese website, but like AliExpress, that's basically what you're gonna see. You're gonna see like streetwear with like, because everyone loves wearing like Japanese text on their shirts now and shit. But like, it's you go to Japan, what do you expect to see? Like, but as far as like my fashion influences go, I honestly sort of feel like I got into like I was able to explore androgyny a bit more because my favorite bands when I was a teenager were all these like Japanese visual kei bands, and so you had all like the kids here who idolized like I don't know like a new metal band or a heavy metal band or like a I guess rap artists at the time were still sort of more like traditionally masculine back in like the 2000s. So you had all the kids here who like basically like in their gender roles, and then I would go to the bands that I liked that were making this sort of like hyper masculine aggressive music, because like the origins of like visual kei in Japan are like punk and hardcore and thrash metal and stuff, so it was very aggressive and like angry music. But they would also have alongside it like ballads and like pop songs on the same album, and like right beside like really vicious metal songs. And the bands themselves, the ones that I like the most, looked really fancy and feminine and like pretty much androgynous. So as time went on, I got more I hated dude clothes, so I just sort of ditched that and started buying like more form-fitting stuff, and that sort of led to me like wanting to always wear tight clothes for a while. But then as I got into like dance music and more like electronic stuff, I became more interested in like I got back into like the urban sort of style trends and shit. And that was also at the time when you had more like producers and rappers sort of being more flamboyant again with like, you know, like Young Thug, he wears like women's jeans and like tight shirts and shit, but he looks great. So
He
like
sure does. Young Thug's the
he was
man.
fucking cool, man. Young Thug's the best. But like
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I just sort of I sort of slowly progressed through phases, and I think like the unifying theme with all of my fashion choices is just whatever I'm listening to at the time. So like
Yeah.
if I'm on like a dance music kick, I'll start like looking for more streetwear stuff. I have like way too many like all black long sleeves with like text on the shoulders and shit.
I
Like
love those. Yeah.
right, like it's so played out now. But it's like
It is.
part of me wishes I could go back to like when that was the thing, because it's like a simpler time when we didn't have all this bullshit. But that's beside the point. Like that's just one example. Like when I got really into like I had like a whole like goth rock kick, and that led to me buying like all these like messy black goth clothes that I would wear, or I would start getting into like just weird psychedelic music, and I would buy all of these like you buy like shit from like Omo Cat with like all the all over print Japanese shirts with like the melting digital pictures on them and shit, and like basically just like whenever I listen to music, I start imagining stuff, and I tend to imagine myself doing stuff to songs. So when I imagine myself doing stuff to those songs, I imagine myself in like a specific outfit, and then I sort of want to build that outfit so I can then go out and like live that fantasy in real life. And that's basically just
Man,
like the pipeline for how it works.
that's fucking cool. I think that is happening to everybody and they're just not conscious of it.
Maybe, I mean, you never know. There are people that
Honestly,
say they
because
don't like. There are people that say they don't they don't imagine anything when they listen to music, which is like that blows my mind. Like whenever I hear a song, I immediately just start imagining
yeah,
like movie scenes or just like cool shit happening or just like
yeah,
scenery. But
for
apparently some people don't
sure.
do that.
Maybe not so much that part is something that everyone experiences, but the part of like whatever music you're listening to like translates into what you wear, because you like maybe don't imagine things, but you envision a certain lifestyle that's associated with that music, and
Yeah.
obviously fashion's associated with lifestyle, right? So I think people without even realizing it like are making those associations. Like there has to be I don't know why I'm just having this thought for the first time in my life, but there has to be books and studies and essays out there on
Oh,
the
yeah.
connection between music and fashion.
I mean, fashion has always been like joined at the hip with music. Like,
It really
who are the
has,
people
yeah.
that drive fashion trends if like not musicians and they're like their groupies and shit? Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
always been it's kind of like David Bowie is a fashion icon.
Oh,
So
for
like,
sure. For sure. So is my man Kanye West, fashion icon, you know?
uh
And
Young
that's
Thug again was Young Thug's big fashion icon. He's just he's always pushing the boundaries and like redefining what's acceptable as like a as a black man
yeah.
basically like
Oh
they
yeah, and he got clowned a lot at first, and like even
yeah,
within
but now people are like, yo, that shit looks good.
and I love the way that he talks about it, because he doesn't even like he doesn't see the like he literally just doesn't see what's weird about a man wearing women's, like he's so innocent about it. He's just like, I thought it looked good, I put it on, I liked how I looked in it, I don't give a fuck what you think about it. You know what I mean? He feels good in it and he fucking
Yep.
looks fantastic. You know what I mean? Who's gonna argue?
Well, that's what I used to say. Like there was a period before I like accepted that I was trans where I was like still sort of just like experimenting with like gender bending stuff. And people were like, do you specifically look for girls' clothes? Do you try to go out in girls' clothes that much? And I'm like, I don't really think of them as like boy clothes or girl clothes. They're my clothes. I wear them because I like them. I think they make me look good, so that's why I wear them. Like if I find a dress that I think looks good on me, I'm gonna wear a fucking dress. And I remember
Right?
this story of this dude, and he was telling a story of like I think he went on like a camping trip, and one of the camp people or something was like a dude wearing a dress, and he was like, "Yo, why are you wearing a dress?" And he was like, "Because it feels nice, it fits good, and it's breathable in the hot forest." And he's like, "Oh shit, it can be practical."
Yeah, no,
I
I
guess
mean, it's funny how things like having like a I'm too cool for this attitude stops being cool the moment somebody is like, no, it's because of this, you know what I mean? Or like, you know what I mean? It's just like, oh yeah, I guess that's kind of true. Why am I being a prick about this dude wearing a dress? You know what I mean? It's like, and something at like, and that's the thing that people like who argue against the idea of like gender fluidity or whatever, like fashion's a perfect example of like how stupid is it that clothes is one gender or another. You know what I
I mean,
mean? Like,
it's literally just wrong thinking because
it's
most of
insane.
women's clothing started as men's clothing. Look at all the paintings from like 17th century France or England or wherever. What the fuck does the king wear? He wears tights,
Yep.
high heels.
They wear
Literally,
Spanx and shit to make their fucking bodies look more like fit and what
exactly. Like
you know what I
all of
mean?
this shit that used to be men's clothing is now considered women's clothing, and it's too feminine for men to wear. Meanwhile, every fucking president up until FDR, when they were a little boy, they did a thing called breeching, where until you were like 4 or 5, you were a little boy that wore a dress.
Really?
Yes, that was a like common cultural practice in America. You can
That's
find
wild.
pictures of like Teddy Roosevelt, FDR, of pictures of them when they were little boys wearing dresses because that's just what you did. They weren't gendered clothing; it was what children wore.
Right.
Like
And
how
when
pink used to be a man color and now it's like a women's color. Like none of it is objective fact. It's just cultural bullshit that
yeah,
we
and I mean and
project.
men of power used to wear wigs, used to wear long curly gray wigs. You know what I
Yep.
mean? It's like so like, it's all but what do you think well, I mean, this is obviously a really fucking loaded and deep question as well, but it's like when did that transition happen and why? In like the simplest explanation. Like obviously there's a lot of factors there, right? But it's like why the sudden turn toward like women's clothes have to be this way, men's clothes have is it the industrial evolution? Is it work? Is it
That's an interesting question. I don't really know if I'm educated enough on the subject to talk
yeah,
about it.
it's a lot, it's a
Well, I
tough
mean,
one.
because there's probably like a key couple of things you could point to with that. Because like I know, for example, like America didn't actually used to be like so gung ho about Christianity. That was more like a response to the Soviet Union's state atheism. Where
Really?
they're like, yeah, basically they were like, oh well, we're enemies with the communists, and the communists like espouse atheism as like their state
Yeah. So we're going with
religion.
God.
So
We're going
yeah, that's
God
that's
we
why they
trust.
that's actually why it's on the money. They put
That's
it on there
so
as a response.
fucked. I see. How did I not see? You think if Americans knew that, how recent the God obsession, what the Christianity obsession was there, they wouldn't rock with it so hard as if that's hand in hand with being American. Like it makes perfect. Like you say that to me, it's a new fact to me, but it makes perfect fucking sense. Of course, it was a response to Soviet communist atheism. You know, it's like, well, you're gonna be that. Well, fuck that. We're riding with Jesus, baby.
Basically.
You know, yeah. Because
Like,
Christianity doesn't go hand in hand with capitalism either. You know what I mean?
Well, that's
if
the thing,
anything,
is, like,
if anything,
if you actually
Christianity is
read-
communist.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you actually read the Bible, like the
Jesus
only
is a
act of-
fucking commie.
basically all he really wanted to do was share resources with the poor. If you're wealthy, help the poor. When a rich man won't get into heaven. The only violent act Jesus ever did was whip bankers. So,
tipping over their shit. Like, fuck you guys. Yeah, no,
literally,
totally.
if you actually read the Bible, I don't see how you take any conclusion out of it other than that you should be a socialist, because fucking
Of course.
what's that one passage in Revelations where it's like you didn't pay your workers as much as they deserved, you made them work the fields for terrible wages forever and for years and years, and now you're reaping what you sowed, and God will come to punish you with like a swarm of locusts or some shit like that. It's like literally the book you said you read says don't do that, and that's all you do.
The idea that Christianity's been intertwined with hardcore capitalism and you know, all these right-wing ideas is the most ridiculous shit ever.
Well, they believe in a thing, well, at least U.S. evangelicals do. They believe in a thing called a prosperity doctrine, wherein if you're rich, it inherently makes you a good person because God deemed you worthy of. He has decided.
Which, as if that's not fucking propaganda, right? Like, come on, you know. So if you fuck people over and, you know, don't give a fuck about human beings and only care about your bottom line,
well, yeah, that's the thing. They
God loves you.
Because God is all powerful, he wouldn't allow you to amass such a disgusting amount of money if you weren't doing it in a fair way.
Oh, yeah, so ignore all the facts, ignore all the, you know, the history.
Well, I mean, it's the same with abortion. The Bible doesn't actually, like, Christians were not actually super opposed to abortion up until, I think, maybe around the same time as
it became a political issue. Yeah.
Like, I have a Christian friend in Australia, and he's actually a communist, and he literally learned, like, oh wait, we didn't used to always be so gung ho about abortion. Which, again, if you read the Bible, there's actually instructions in it on how to perform an abortion. But
that's trippy.
I mean, literally, that's it. It lays out the circumstances under which you should give a woman an abortion. So it's like,
I didn't realize abortions have been around that. I guess, I mean, not that abortions have been around that long, but I just thought it wouldn't have been possible without killing the mother up until more recently.
I mean, it probably killed a lot of mothers. It was still a thing that people did.
Yeah, probably more than 50% death rate, I would imagine, back in the biblical days. Probably 80% or more.
And I also gotta say, like, it's super dumb that like a lot of Western conservatives, especially in America, where it's most prevalent, where they're like they like to fearmonger with Islam, to be like, you don't want them gaining power here because then they're going to institute Sharia law. And then you look at a state like Alabama, where they've essentially, I don't know if it's passed, I think it's basically like de facto law because they don't really have any abortion clinics anymore. But if a doctor there tries to perform an abortion, basically like the doctor can go to jail, and like the mother, I think they were proposing like giving her the death penalty for getting an abortion, which is like, I don't know if you know this, but like Sharia law, which sucks as well, by the way, has provisions for abortion. They actually have circumstances under which a woman can get one, whereas Alabama was just like, no, never. It's all bad. So you're literally more extreme than like a hardline Islamist person, which is already ridiculous. But then it's also like, you're afraid of Muslims entering government because they're going to be religious extremists who do shit you don't like, which already isn't true. It's fucking like, you have like Ilhan Omar, who is like an actual socialist who pushes like policies to help feed hungry children and shit. Like, she's not in there pushing for like Islamic fundamentalism or some shit. And then you have like our local MP in this town who's literally like a hardline Christian kid who wants to ban abortion. It's like,
yeah, which one is the extreme?
There's already religious extremists in government. They're Christian.
It's most of government, especially in America, is fucking religious extremists. They're the people that
literally the vice
have risen
president
to power.
the Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State and former head of the CIA, and Mike Pence, the Vice President, are both evangelical Christians who believe that for Jesus to return to Earth, Jerusalem has to be destroyed, which is why they stoke so much war in the Middle East. Really, like you're afraid of Muslims in government when these are the dudes at the top of the chain
That's the
right
thing.
now?
Everything about America and everything they're afraid of is just somebody doing to them what they do to everybody else, and what they did to the Native Americans and what they did to black people. They just don't want someone doing that to them. That's all
I
they're
mean,
afraid of. The
if you think
terrorism, the religious stuff, that they're all
think
just
about
afraid
it like
of
think
that.
about it like this. Everyone always talks like, oh, if we don't crack down on these Muslims, they're gonna take over the government and they're gonna make everyone worship the Quran. And then you look to South America, to the country of Bolivia, which was like an actual like South American country that was doing well. Their GDP was increasing by like 4% every year. They had democratically elected a socialist president like 3 times. And what do? I was I literally was like bringing them up as a good example of like how a socialist government can do a good job and just be like completely fair. And then, as lo and behold, a couple months later, he gets cooed. The military forces him to flee the country. They burn down his fucking home. They run over his dog with a tank. And
Jeez.
guess who takes over? Literally, like the lady who got like 2% or 4% of the vote walks into the presidential palace, flanked by the military, holding a comically oversized Bible, sets it down on the indigenous people's flag, and goes,
Oh
Bolivia belongs to
man,
Christ.
it's all
So,
fucking theater, man.
literally, like, think about that shit. Literally, the thing you said that you were afraid of Muslims doing happened in South America, and no one fucking cares because, I don't know, they got rid of the guy who wanted to help poor people.
Ugh. It's so backwards, and this just requires such brainwashing to
Well, I mean, that's the
not.
thing. This is what pisses me off a lot, is because I tend to be like kind of outspoken about North Korea, which is always weird to people because like, oh, how can you say anything good about North Korea? And it's like, well, I don't have to say anything good. It's just that you say a lot of shit that's not true, which you think people would pick up on eventually because, after a certain amount of time, you would start to put together two and two and see that like, oh, every couple months they say someone was executed, and then like 2 weeks later they show up alive on camera. Like they said, like that one pop singer in North Korea was executed. She showed up to like the Olympic Games. They said that they executed the one general, and then he showed up beside Kim Jong Un in a theater watching movies. They said Kim Jong Un was fucking dead a month ago, and then he
Yeah.
showed up alive. It's like, why do you guys keep just taking this shit as like fact? And you're like, oh, of course that happens there. That's exactly what it's like.
Well,
And
because
then,
it's been demonized, right? It's just you
well, that and
automatically
they won't.
think.
It's been demonized, and I mean, like, for some good reason. It is like an authoritarian place. It's
Oh,
not a
for
good
sure.
place to live, but like a lot of the shit that's spread about there is just accepted uncritically. Like a lot of the news we hear about North Korea is from a conservative South Korean newspaper that just prints shit they make up with no sources, and then we just accept that as like, oh yeah, that's true. But
Sounds
there's
familiar.
right, but then like, ugh,
So what
people
do you
say the
think
North
though?
Koreans. People
So
say
what
the
are
North
the?
Koreans are brainwashed, but like, it's like,
Oh, please.
think right, like, one, they're actually pretty informed on global events, surprisingly. Like if you actually watch videos of people just like going there and hanging out with locals, obviously you'll get like some of the propaganda of like the locals saying like, oh yeah, everything here is fine, nothing is wrong, blah 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 blah. But you still can like ask them about global events and they'll know about them. Like they know what's going on, they know their country isn't super good. Kim Jong-un went to South Korea and was like, hey, our country's pretty shit, can you help us out with our roads, they're pretty bad. Like he admitted it on live television to like the whole world, even including South Korea, and like people were like, "Oh, that's what he sounds like." I've never heard his voice before because they don't let people in South Korea hear any broadcast of the Kim family ever. It's illegal to own any of their writings. It's illegal to like have video of them, so no one had ever heard his voice or anything he said there.
Wow.
It's like I get that there's heavy propaganda in North Korea, but like we act like we're not sucking down our own propaganda about a place most of us have never been to or even tried to learn about.
That's
It's
very
like,
true. Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, it's unbelievable. There's just so much. I mean, especially for like, obviously we in Canada, we try to be a little more informed of what's going on globally, at least some of us, and we often criticize Americans for being so uninformed of everything that's going on outside of America. When you consider, you look at the complexity of all the issues going on within America, it's almost hard to blame them for being
Not
in
really their fault that they're ignorant about a lot of stuff, because literally the American
well, they're not
propaganda,
educated.
America's propaganda machine is like,
They're the best. They're the best.
Basically, like they're a lot. In some ways, they're stronger than North Korea's, because like
They've
North
mastered
Korea,
it.
literally, like North Korea only really has that sort of monopoly on narrative because they only have like the one state-sanctioned news agency. But meanwhile, in America, it's like people are they've been limited in scope so much that they hate CNN or they hate Fox, and they think the other one is lying, whereas both of them blatantly lie. Both of them do, and they like exclude important facts in their stories to try and like paint their narrative, which is that's what news does. I don't really think there is such thing as unbiased journalism, because everyone has some kind of angle they want to share. And if you were just doing just raw objective facts, ironically, you would actually have news that's kind of like North Korea's, because their news is incredibly dry. It's still propaganda because they exclude anything that makes them look bad, but literally their news stories are like, today the supreme leader visited a fish factory. In attendance were 50 names of like Korean officials. He walked around, he inspected stuff, he said it looked good. That's it. And they barely try to
Right.
sensationalize
So it's
it.
news minus entertainment.
It's super bland, super duper bland. I think my speaker just said goodbye because it was unplugged. Anyway, though, what I'm getting at here is like the news that people get in America is so limited in like nuance and scope. Like it never shifts particularly far leftward to the point where people hear stuff like, oh, a universal school where it's free, and they think that's impossible. Meanwhile, it's literally a thing that's done in Germany. School is free in Germany. It's a thing that you can do in a democratic first world country, but they don't get told those sorts of things, so they think it's crazy communist propaganda.
Which
and then
drives me
like,
nuts, because it's just like, just think about it.
It's even sillier because people in America will be like, in a communist country, they teach you to read so that you can swear allegiance to communism and Marxism or whatever in the school. And it's like, aren't you literally the country that makes your kids pledge allegiance to the flag every day in school?
Yeah,
Like,
and still don't teach them how to fucking read properly or talk. You know what
I
I'm
mean,
saying?
the thing is, I honestly feel like one thing with America is that they don't teach Marxist economics in school. Like one of my favorite economists is Richard Wolff, and he does great analysis of all sorts of things, but he's a Marxist, and he's only a Marxist because he had to go to school in America for economics, and he learned like the standard like Keynesian model and other American models of economics, but he was never given an opportunity to learn Marxist economics. He had to search out all of those books on his own to learn about that framework for evaluating market forces and where value comes from. And they don't teach that stuff in America, and I think that they actually probably should teach Marxist economics in school there, because it actually gives you a means of understanding why shit is worth what it is, why or how economic forces dominate politics, because it's like, oh, obviously those who have money have a vested interest in keeping things in such a way that allows them to make more money, but that means that people who are poor are like the people that might have a vested interest in keeping people who are poor, because they literally profit off of paying them less than the value of their labor, because we know that shit is only worth something because it takes human effort to make something. It's not just demand, because it was just demand and you sold shit that you made, and like everybody wanted to buy it, right? Like, let's say you made something really cool. You made like the best TV in the world, and then everybody bought it, and you got super duper rich. Logically, you have that money only because the people that build the TV build the TV. So the people who built the TV should be getting paid more. but somehow the profit of the company raises, but the people who work for it get no money. And sometimes they, like right now, their pay gets cut. Like there's a hospital network in I know there's one in Florida, and they got something like 700 million in coronavirus relief funds, but because it's a privately owned hospital network, the CEO got a huge raise and the nurses got their budgets slashed. So it's like, oh, I see how this works. The people who actually like having the most money do everything they possibly can to keep people who generate the money for them on pennies, because the less they pay them, the more that they get to keep, which is absurd.
And yet you have people fighting tooth and nail to defend that, and and they don't think maybe it's because of that whole decades of Cold War against the Soviets thing. There might be some residual censorship and propaganda against some of these left-wing ideas. You
gotta realize, like, at the time of like the Red Scare, a lot of the shit that they were searching for that might indicate you were a communist was just good stuff. Like being for
smart,
civil rights, or being for civil rights, like not being racist, demanding black people have equal rights under the law. Or here's one that was actually, I learned
commie,
the other day,
you're a commie.
Yeah, apparently one of the things that made you probably a communist was you had too negative of an opinion of Hitler's Germany before World War II.
Ugh.
So if before World War II you were going around saying that Hitler sucked, you were potentially a commie.
A Russian spy. You and I having this conversation on this show and putting it out for people to watch are Russian spies as far as standards from just a few decades ago are concerned, right?
As far as standards from now, honestly. I hate that shit, because you'll try to say something like, look, I just want to give a criticism of like American liberal values from a left-wing perspective, not a conservative standpoint, because I'm not a right-winger and I don't consider right-wingers my friends. But you try to you try to critique liberal values, and they assume you're like a Russian agent trying to sow disorder, and it's like,
that's so insane. Oh, what is gonna happen, Rayray Sugarbutt? What's gonna happen? What are we headed toward here?
I mean, we know what we're headed towards. Either we reform thing. It's literally what didn't Stephen Hawking fucking say this before he died in like a Reddit AMA, where he was like, I see two potential futures.
Accuracy.
He was like, I see two potential futures. Either we reform the system so that people stop accumulating wealth at the top and it's fairly redistributed, or it just gets more extreme and inequality gets worse and worse until, we literally can't sustain it. Because, I mean, people think about it like, see, you can't do socialism because it always fails. But then it's like, what do you think happens if you keep raising the price of shit and you keep lowering the amount you pay people? Eventually, people won't have money to buy your shit.
You want to talk about failure? Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing it right now, literally, where like the stock market is climbing almost back to where it was before this crisis, but there's 40 million or more unemployed people in America. Like, it is no measure of how good everyone is doing. And on top of that, it's like, it's like people are like, oh, capitalism is good because it's the most efficient way to allocate resources. And then you see shit like, oh, well, no one is buying this excess produce because people are short on money and no one can go to the restaurant. So let's just let all the food rot in a field rather than donating it to food banks, which are struggling to feed people. It's like,
makes so much sense.
Efficient?
Yeah, it's insane. And that's not even factoring in the mental health issues that this whole system has caused people.
I mean, that's
suicides,
the other thing.
The drug addictions, the alcoholism.
That is a thing that that's a good point that I like that Richard Wolff has made, is that it's actually economically inefficient to let people suffer, because if you let people be poor and trapped in poverty, you get all these societal things you have to pay money to take care of, like therapy, like homeless shit. You got to pay more money for healthcare because everyone's sick because they can't.
Well, and then the quality of the workforce goes down as well, right? Because people
would think that like a good capitalist would want healthy, strong, happy workers.
Happy workers,
they can be productive and make you more money. But no, they literally like try to crush all of the life out of a worker and like bleed them dry until they're not of any use, and they just find another cheap worker. It's like, you're literally just slowly eroding the labor force, making it so that there's no. On top of all this shit, it's inefficient for people to have the level of money they have at the top because the money is not going back into the economy. If you taxed a billionaire at an actual fair rate like they did in America in like the 1950s, I think it was the 1950s, whenever Dwight Eisenhower was president, the tax rate was literally like 90% for the top earners, and they used that money to do shit like build the interstate highway network, so there were roads. So like when you actually tax people that make that much money a fair amount, you can actually reinvest it in society
and get
and that
so
makes
much
people,
more done with that money.
You make so much more money when you actually tax them so people can have money to buy shit. Like, that's how the whole middle class of the 50s grew. They had money from them actually taxing the wealthy and doing like industrial labor shit and having strong unions that allowed them to have fair wages and fight for fair wages and defend their fair wages. They didn't get rolled back. And those people were able to buy homes, start families, like follow their dreams. And now people can barely afford to like subscribe to Netflix and eat fucking McDonald's every month because they don't even have enough money to buy or to have kids. How would I have kids? Like, I mean, I'm going to be infertile because of hormones, but that's beside the point. How would I have kids? I can't afford to take care of like a small child.
Yeah, no,
Like,
or most people from our generation would be fucked if they. Well, a lot of people that they do have kids and they're fucked, you know, or they're not necessarily fucked, but they're never going to see this great dream of freedom and wealth and the American dream that this whole thing is supposed to be about.
Not
They're
even like the American dream. Most Western countries are failing to have that. Like, we live in Canada. We're not getting any better economically.
No,
like,
for sure. And people are suffering worse than they would be if they were in a fucking communist dictatorship in a lot of cases, right?
In a lot of cases, yes, because I mean, if you just look at the statistics, when they abolished communism, it was never communism, it was socialism, but that's beside the point. When they abolished that in like the USSR, the life expectancy dropped by like 10 years. They died in massively higher numbers because they didn't have things like housing or education or healthcare they could afford. Like, I'm sorry, but like, even if you assume that doing socialism means that everyone ends up poor, okay, let's assume that, even though that's not how it works, because they generally are poor because the countries with money try to blockade them from trading with anyone, which is incidentally why North Korea sucks a lot, because no one will trade with them, so they have to make do with like whatever shit they have in their country. But let's just assume that doing socialism makes everyone poor. Okay, but also, you know, they have a house and they actually do get food because there is state allocated food in times of famine. Not during the Holodomor and like when Stalin was around, but generally when there's a shortage of food, they make it so that they ration it out so no one does go hungry and starve. Or, you know, okay, I can't buy fucking blue jeans, or I can't buy a banana because the bananas have been blockaded and we can't really ship them from fucking Cuba to Poland without them rotting. But like, okay, I can't buy that shit, but I can go to school for free. I can have my kids at a daycare where they're actually taken care of for free, and I don't have to worry about like staying home to take care of my kids while I work. I can get a job. I will never be out of a job because there is like a federal jobs guarantee, because there's always work that needs to be done.
Yes, and that's why the education is going to be quality as well.
Literally, the top like nuclear scientists in the world came from communist countries for a long time. Like, America was using Russian rockets to get. I don't know how people can be like, oh, it was a complete failure, when with the first images we got of the surface of another fucking planet were from a Soviet spacecraft landing on Venus or Mercury or Venus, one of them. But they were literally the first country to get a thing in space, landed on a celestial body, and send back pictures of the surface of another fucking planet. They were the first country to put people in space.
That's why America had to fake the moon landing, man. That's why America had to fake the moon landing. You know, they had to win that race and prove that capitalism is the true dominant.
I mean, that's the dumbest shit to me, where people are like, oh, America won the space race. It's like, in what world do you lose every other part of the race and then cross a finish line that you set arbitrarily yourself and then say you won? Russia got literally... Well, Russia literally, not even Russia, like the USSR as a whole got like the first black man in space, the first Indian man in space, the first man in space, the first woman in space, the first
I
orbit of
didn't
the
know. I
planet, the
didn't know
first
any of that.
satellite. How the
And
fuck do you say you won the space race?
You'll never hear any of that mentioned in any American conversation whatsoever, and nobody stops to think that they might be brainwashed or they might be a victim of propaganda or they might, it's just like, no, the Russians are the evil ones, right? And the other thing is like, yeah, if it's just, it makes perfect sense that if the society is all working together to have the best society, then it's priority that everybody is healthy and educated and everybody's going to have a good education. It's just like the quality of life would have to be better. It's of everybody's best interest, right?
I mean, even look at like fucking Cuba, where fucking they are poor, they do
Yes.
struggle with poverty, but
Yes.
because they have a socialist government, they do better with the poverty than capitalist countries in South America. Colombia is a capitalist country. It's got so many fucking homeless people, massive rates of crime, large amounts of unemployment. Like, that's a capitalist South American country. And then you have another like Latin country in Cuba that has a socialist government, and despite them being poor, their system allows them to manage it in such a way that they take care of people better. There's
Yes.
like barely any crime. Everyone in Cuba has a home, so like a lot of them live with their family, but there's not really homeless people there. And if you do lose your home, they find you another one. You like they have like 99% literacy. They have some of the like literally one of the ways Cuba makes money is sending their highly trained doctors around the world to help out with health crises and pandemics. It's like they're poor, but they're clearly doing a better job of making do with what they do have.
Yes. And their education system makes so much more sense. Like when I went to Cuba, the tour guide was explaining how their education worked, and it was like basically from a young age they're using, scientific method to discover what kids are best suited for what positions, and also allowing them to make the choice of like, am I going to go to an art school, am I going to go to a math school, so that it's not everybody learning everything and getting totally overwhelmed and basically just being trained into these fucking assembly line like fucking positions.
Exactly. That's the thing. I saw people being like, "Oh, I don't want a federal jobs guarantee. That means I'm going to be forced to work in some shitty office job that I don't like." It's like, okay,
No, they're gonna help you find something for you.
Yeah. One, they're going to help you, but two, you already do that. Like, let's be real.
Exactly.
So
You
many
hate
people
your
end up
job
working
anyway.
shitty jobs they hate because like
Most people.
Yeah, most people end up working a shitty job they hate, and not
Yes.
even most people get a
That's the system.
degree. Most people get a degree and they don't get to use the degree because the degree ends up being useless.
Yes,
Whereas,
because the system needs the majority of people to have shitty jobs. That's the
yeah,
whole point. That's the whole
but
thing.
meanwhile, everyone says like, oh, if you live in a socialist country, they're gonna force you to be something that you're not good at. It's like, no, they give you education so you can go and like train, and then
Yes.
trained in a field that you expressed interest in, because they're not going to make you fucking, oh, Sergey was bad at math, but we made him do math anyway, and now he will be a math man. No, like you literally you find out what you like to do,
And then you
you learn
become
it,
the
and
best of the best at it.
yeah, they find
As
you a
they
place
did
to do your
repeatedly.
job.
Yeah.
Ah.
It's unreal, man. I mean, even down to sports, Russia dominated the sports world because it was like, all right, here's the athletes. Now let's give them all the best fucking training camps, all the best resources. We're not waiting until they've realized they suck at math, they suck at English, they suck at science, they suck at this and that. The only thing I'm good at is freaking soccer. And then now I'm 18 and I haven't practiced soccer because my parents made me fucking, pass this test. It's like, no, this kid was not meant to be a fucking math kid. All right. He's meant to be a goddamn soccer player. Let's get this kid some shin pads and stuff. All right. It's like, maybe that's not the best example, but it's like, specific things for specific people that are based on the individual. This whole idea that everybody would be this uniform gray and there'd be no sense of individuality. It's like, no, there would be individuality because you'd be able to have an education that is based on who you are and not
you actually
who they
do
want
what
you to
wanted.
be.
I dropped out of school because I wasn't learning what I wanted to learn, and I was like, okay, if I keep trying programs to find something that I like, I'm going to go heavily into debt because I don't have the freedom to just
can't afford this shit
stuff
anymore. Yeah, man, it's unbelievable. And hey, it's and there will be people, and there are tons of people having this exact conversation on the opposite side about how capitalism is freedom and all this is like we're slaves and we're brainwashed, and it's just like all I care about is that the people around me in this world are happy, healthy, educated, and can contribute. Why would you want anything else? I don't feel like I'm ever going to be able to get ahead if the world around me is shit. You know, like I don't get.
I mean, I was like, I have a pretty robust server where we have a lot of people come in. Generally, like in my Discord server, it's generally pretty much just left wing because like the people that have differing views from us tend to be outnumbered. Like technically, I guess it's an echo chamber, but I never really like the term echo chamber in the sense that if you have a place where everyone just voices their opinions, it's like I guess, but how do you? The only way you could facilitate that would be by having every single like faction be equally represented there, because otherwise you're going to just slowly accumulate the an amount of people that agree with one sort of thing, and it's like it's not like we just boot people, you know, if they go in and say like, well, I'm a conservative. It's like, okay, we're going to talk to you and we're going to see what you think, and then you'll probably get pushback because we don't believe in that like ideology, but like we're not just going to ban you for being a certain way. But it's still like it's primarily a left-wing space, and then people come in there and it's like whatever. It's sometimes they feel outnumbered, but that's beside the point. I had people in there, one guy in particular, who like I was trying to explain how socialism actually functions, because it's not actually, you know, just Communist Party decides everything. No, socialism is supposed to be, at least in my view, when you have democracy in your workplace. And the way that works is there's not a boss at the workplace, or at least not a business owner at the workplace. The business is owned collectively by everyone at that business because they all contribute to the profits of the business by giving their labor to the business. So they all get a say in what the business does. Whenever they want to make a business decision, the workers hold a vote, and then by like consensus, you know, you decide on what you want to do as a business together, and that's the fairest outcome, as opposed to like a boss deciding for everyone when you rely on your workplace to live, to make money, to like have a livelihood at all. You need a job. That's the thing that affects your life the most, a lot more than like elections, honestly. Like elections do have consequences, but like at the localist of local levels, your workplace, you have it's a dictatorship because you have no say in how it's run.
Damn, that's
and
fucked up.
if your boss decides, well, it's not very profitable for us to make orange juice anymore, we're going to make something else, and then they let you go, and then the business tanks anyway, and it's like, I had no say in my livelihood being stripped away from me. It's just some like shareholder decided it for me. So socialism is when everyone who works at the workplace has an equal say and you decide as a group. And this guy was just, he hated this concept because he was like, well, what if I don't, what if there's, what if everyone at the workplace hates me and then they all vote to get rid of me or something like that? And it's like, as opposed to just your boss hating you and getting rid of you, like this is fairer. That's democratic. Is that you, not liked by everyone else at the workplace, are voted out, as opposed to the guy who just likes you and not everyone else keeping you around, even though you're a prick to everybody. That's actually fair. But people don't like that because they're like, oh, I don't want to have to share my business with my workers, even though they're literally the ones that allow me to have a business.
This is fucking me up. Every problem that I've ever had with every job I've ever had is exactly what you're talking about, including my current one. And you know, sorry if anyone's listening wants to get me fired, but it's so fucking true. I think I'm meant to be a socialist because that's the workplaces, man. Like what the fuck? Why are our workplaces fucking dictatorships?
It's literally a better model because one of the most profitable and long-lasting corporations in Spain is a company called, I think it's called the Mandragon Group or something like that. It's Mandra something. But either way, it's a cooperatively owned company where they have a hard rule that the person who makes the most money cannot make 8 times more than the person making the entry wage, which, I mean, that's still a disparity in wealth, but it's still fairer because, you know, 8 times $15 is still not, you know, $3 million a year for doing management. And on top of that, all of their decisions, you know, are made collectively for what they do. They vote on what they do in the workplace, and it's literally outlasted lots of private corporations in Spain. It's just a successful company, and that's a successful model for shit. My friend works in a factory in America. They all own shares of the factory, because that's the other part of capitalism, is that every business has shareholders, and those shareholders are the ones that decide stuff, right? Like, they're the ones that vote on things. There's no workers on the board of directors. It's just shareholders. So the people that don't even work at the place, who are capitalists because they function by having capital, as in like the business that generates the money, the means of producing money, the means of production.
Yes.
The shareholders are the ones that control the fate of the business despite not working at it. The way they make money is by having money and then throwing it around in places. But my friend works in a factory where the workers all own shares in the factory. So everyone has a share of the business, and when the factory does well financially, they all do well because they make more money because their shares get valued more. One of the things Bernie Sanders wanted to do was put something like 45% of the board of directors had to be workers, which is not 51%, which is like the ideal, or like the ideal to get the ball rolling, but it's still a reform that gets you close to it, as opposed to no workers on the board of directors.
So right
Like,
now there's no
yes, like, this is actually why.
Oh,
This is why
fucked.
countries like, say, North Korea again, because I love to use it as an example, because it breaks people's brains that it's not just a cartoon villain country.
Yeah.
Everyone goes, oh, it's called the Democratic People's Republic. What a scam. How did no one figure that out? It's because at the time it wasn't a fucking scam. The ideology was, you have no democracy in your workplace, the thing that actually, controls your fate.
Holy shit.
And that's why it's called the Democratic People's Republic, because they didn't have elections necessarily, but
my mind is blown. I'm a communist. I think I think I'm sold. I think I'm. Are you a Russian spy? Are you sure you're not a Russian spy?
No, I
you have. I think you've converted me.
I don't know. But that's just why it ended up
not even converted, but awoken what I already knew but didn't really know.
Well, stay woke.
Fucking me up. Thank you. I thought I was woke, but I'm more woke now.
But I mean,
people need to listen to people like you.
Thank you. I would love to have my own thing where I talk to people about this shit. But
I hope that maybe this can lead to something. I don't know, because this is very eye opening.
Maybe I enjoy being a correspondent, but just to level that out, obviously it did end up being kind of a scam in the end, because North Korea did degrade into a state where you didn't really have workplace democracy so much, and it was mostly just decided by your party, the Workers' Party. You decide okay, these are the benchmarks we need to set, yada 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 yada. Although I will say Kim Jong-un has made lots of reforms to allow people to actually run their own businesses again. So it's very funny to me that people paint him as the worst dictator ever, because I don't know, they believe a lot of news stories.
Because he's a cartoon character, like you said.
He has a cartoon character haircut.
Yeah,
but he's actually been very good for that country, because his father was total dog shit. He didn't really care if anyone died. He just cared about being worshipped like a god. And Kim Jong-un has actually, made it so people can run their own businesses, which is why people there aren't starving anymore, because they can actually, control their business and make money and sell shit that they make and grow themselves. And that's how most people there support themselves. And now if you look at the streets there, they have traffic, they have cars, people own cars. Their standard of living has increased because he's actually made reforms similar to Vietnam.
Well, he's young, right? He's young,
He grew up in the West. People, I could rant about North Korea forever, and that's its own episode. But the point is, it was not a scam to name it Democratic People's Republic at the time, because they actually thought, well, yeah, South Korea can vote. Well, actually, no, South Korea couldn't vote. At the time that North Korea was formed, they were a military dictatorship backed by an American-installed dictator, and that was several decades.
There's the fucking common denominator: American-installed dictator.
Literally, South Korea was run by military juntas and dictators for over a decade. The president that got impeached was literally the daughter of one of the military dictators of South Korea, and it's extra funny that people I always use this example. In American theaters, they tried to run propaganda about North Korea by saying that in North Korea, they execute people who are not communists. And then it's One, I'm not sure that happened exactly like that. It probably did happen to some extent because they were pretty ruthless at the time, but it completely leaves out the fact that in South Korea, they were just indiscriminately murdering people they suspected of being communists. They never even proved it. They just sort of like found people and they're like, I suspect him, and then they just shot them dead immediately.
Oh, and there's probably tons of Americans that got killed for being
Yeah.
suspected communists or imprisoned at
Most of them
least.
were black.
Really?
Unfortunately, yes, because the communist movement
Right.
in
They
America
thought
was
that
largely
the
black
Black
people.
Panther.
The
Yeah,
Black
yeah.
Panthers were
Communists.
communists,
Yeah, yeah.
and like a lot of them were just like actually good people. Like Fred Hampton literally like got the gangs of I think Chicago to agree to like a ceasefire so they could unite and try to demand like better living conditions that would actually like eliminate the need to have a gang because you would have affordable housing and food and education, all that shit that you don't get and
So
end up
what
in a
is
gang.
it besides fucking just pure evil and outright discern for human? I'm not blaming, the general populace of right-wing people because it's not their fault necessarily. But what is this fucking driving force that has been actively shutting down and demonizing the idea of everybody working together and sharing as a group? You know what I mean? Like, what? Why?
It's
Why?
literally it's the capitalist class, the people that benefit from making tons of money by just simply owning capital and
Do they
moving
really
money
have that
around.
much power?
Yes, because literally that's how the power works. It's why I want people to learn Marxism in schools is because it actually teaches you a framework to understand the power dynamics of society. Is that the people with all of the
Fuck.
resources get to decide how things work, which is why you need things like labor unions and strong labor power, because then if the workers own the things that make the money, the people that work for a
The
living
people have
really
the
have a say.
power.
That's the
Damn.
point of it. People talk about how like there weren't you couldn't elect like the leaders of the Soviet Union or Cuba. You couldn't vote out Castro and then stuff like that. But the fact of the matter is, the Soviet Union had suffrage for women before America did. Women could vote there earlier. They could just vote in the workplace. Whereas in America, they weren't even
Oh,
allowed to work. Like
holy fuck, man. This is fucked. This is mind blowing. I hope. I
there's a
hope. I
lot of
hope.
stuff that people just don't know about this shit, which makes it easy to fall into the trap of, oh yeah,
Because
communism, nothing good came out of it, and everyone was constantly starving, which makes no
and
sense because we literally have like leaked CIA documents, or
oh,
not even like declassified CIA documents that said in the 1970s that Soviet citizens had better diets than Americans. So like they were not fucking
so
starving. There were no
this whole lunch line. Sorry, the food truck lines, all that fucking. Everybody's getting rained on, waiting in the
that was the
food
thing.
truck
There
for
were
their
no
slop.
from the time that Stalin died up until like the late 80s, there were no fucking bread lines in the Soviet Union because they had adequate food.
Uh,
They
it's
didn't have luxury food because
it's
again, how do you import a banana all the way from Cuba to Eastern Europe without it rotting? Originally there were communist movements in France and Italy that were trying to win like democratically. They were running for democratic election and people were about to elect them, and there was US interference in a thing called Operation Gladio and then several other operations that basically shut down those parties by either infiltrating those parties or publicly smearing those parties, or in some cases just killing the people in those parties. And what that meant was that you didn't have a friendly communist force in France or in Italy, which is, those countries are on the Mediterranean. That's where you would grow tropical fruit. So the reason the Eastern Bloc had no fruit was because they had no friendly countries nearby that could ship it to them before it rotted.
I'm gonna cry. This is fucked.
There's a lot that people don't really seem to think about for
And the
why
thing
things were
is
the way
like
they
I
were.
was already like, with this side of things for the most part without knowing about half of this shit. And now it's like if you actually but the thing is the minute you start talking now, it's almost brilliant what they've done, because the minute you start talking like this, you're a libtard, you're a snowflake, you're a fucking, they've demonized that to such an extent where it's like, and then
It's like when fucking Bernie said that Cuba had a good literacy program and everyone booed him. It's like, really?
it
It's
was
bad to
like,
teach people to read?
you can't say facts, you know.
It's,
It's yeah. Oh wow. Well, you've given me a fuck of a lot to think about, and I'm definitely going to have you back at some point
that
because
would be great.
damn, I knew you were intelligent, but you've really opened my eyes to a lot. And I think
Resident
that
dirty red correspondent here, reporting
yeah.
live.
And I really hope that, so many people, like, they look at people like you and they think, oh, this person's just like a far crazy left-wing nut. You know what I mean? But it's like, no, you've educated yourself. You've done the work.
Well, I
You've
like to
done the
think
homework
so. Like
to some extent, right?
I've said these positive things about these communist countries, but like I'm not going to deny like the bad things they've done as well. Like I'm not going to pretend North Korea didn't run some of the most like grotesque concentration camps in the world.
Of
Although it's
course.
funny to rant a little bit more on that topic for just a second. It's funny that people were outraged that Kim Jong Un had his uncle executed because that guy, Jang Son-tek, was literally like Kim Jong Il's right hand man and oversaw like concentration camps where they tested flamethrowers on prisoners. It's like, really? You're mad he killed that guy?
I love that you said that because I was going to bring that up to you when you were talking about that. I was like, what about his uncle? He killed his uncle. And here you go.
His uncle was such a good guy, right?
Yeah, how could you kill your own uncle? Uncles are such sweet people, they give you Christmas presents, Oh, that's too much. But thank you so much for coming on, and I love that I'm honored I was able to give you a platform to talk about some of this stuff outside of your own echo chamber, because I think that it's important that people see that these so-called echo chambers are not necessarily just filled with psychos feeding each other's egos. You know what I mean?
I
there's
try to
research.
have nuance. So
Yeah.
people like know like, yeah, these places did bad things, but like a lot of the shit you heard about them is either straight up lies or people left out important facts that contributed to why they were the way they were.
Yeah, and hey, there's a lot of lefties that are extremely anti North Korea just on the basis that Trump shook Kim Jong Un's hand. You know what I mean?
Which
It's
is
like,
extra stupid because it's like, if wouldn't you want this place to be better? It's like you've been sanctioning them for decades and it's not gotten any better at all. The only way to actually make them better is to fucking trade with them so their people don't have to eat fucking uh, crops grown with
like
human shit.
isn't that the issue, the humanitarian stuff? Well, if
Well,
we can help, shouldn't we help, right?
Well, I mean, this is the last little tangent I'm going to go on, but literally in the 90s, North Korea had like the most brutal famine ever, basically, because the Soviet Union collapsed. So it had no like big trading partner to get resources from, like food and materials and money. So they went into a heavy depression, and then they had a massive drought, and basically that made it like impossible to grow food. Or no, I think it was not a drought. Maybe it was a flood. But either way, they weren't able to grow food very well. So they had a massive shortage of food, couldn't feed everyone. People were starving and dying in the streets in huge numbers, eating tree bark and grass and shit. And they asked America for help. They literally came to the US and was like, please help us, give us some relief. And then America went, we'll only help you if you renounce your socialist government system. And they said, no, we don't want to do that. And they just like, okay, then you can starve. So like, you could have prevented this.
Yeah.
You didn't have to literally let millions of people starve to death just to try to change the system of a country that you don't. It's not your country.
Doesn't affect you. Yeah,
I mean,
just God forbid some of those ideas might spread if things go well.
I have a Bangladeshi friend, and she learned about the same thing happening in Bangladesh, which I mean that's not a socialist country, but like they were in a state of like severe famine, and they asked for help from the U.S. and the U.S. demanded that they change their government in exchange for getting the food aid, and they didn't, and lots of people fucking starved. So it's like, yeah, on one hand, it is also the fault of the local governments. Like Kim Jong Il redirected shitloads of money to the military to keep people placated and not, killing him. And if he had just redirected that money elsewhere, it probably wouldn't have been so bad. But at the same time, it wouldn't have been that bad if you had just fucking shipped them some crates of food.
If you're such a humanitarian and you care so much about those people and their rights and their freedoms, how about you let them eat a little bit instead of letting them starve just because of ideological
It clearly hasn't
differences.
made them hate the government enough to get rid of it.
Yeah, apparently
when has
not.
sanctioning a place ever worked? Like they've been sanctioning all sorts of countries around the world for being socialist or something else they don't like. and it's never led to government overthrow.
Yep, and they've
Just makes the people there hate you.
It's never solved any. Yeah, it's just created. Exactly what they're afraid of, right? Is people hating them.
I mean, part of me thinks that's the point, but that's a topic for another time, I
Yeah.
guess.
Well, there's just so many layers. There's just so many layers to this shit.
I could rant all day.
Yeah. Damn. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you,
Anytime.
and I will absolutely let you come on here and rant all day, anytime again. So,
Sounds good.
we'll make it happen. So, thanks a lot, and all the best. Once again, where can the people find you for those who have short attention spans?
I'm on ManyVids, Subscribestar if you want to pay for my content. ManyVids is videos, Subscribestar is pictures and short clips. And on Twitter, I post free stuff like pictures and videos every day, more or less. And they're all Rayray Sugarbutt. If you search Rayray Sugarbutt, you will be able to find that. That's Rayray. And I assume you know how to spell sugar and butt.
I certainly hope so. Thank you very much.
Anytime.
Absolutely. Much love.
Same. Bye-bye.
Bye.
About to take a plane to another plane, to another plane, to another plane, bumping back and not nice while I'm trapping in the rain.